Please rise for invocation by Deacon Stephen Gross of Our Lady of Hope Catholic Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Deacon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman, Mr. Mayor, friends, visitors, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we welcome before you with grateful hearts, seeking your guidance and wisdom in today's meeting. We thank you for this community of Port Orange, for each leader, resident, and servant who strives to make it a place of prosperity, peace, compassion, and unity. Grant each council member clarity and discernment as they address the matters at hand. Help them make decisions that reflect integrity, fairness, and compassion for the well-being of all who call this city their home. We pray for the citizens of Port Orange. May they be blessed with safety, prosperity, and strong bonds with one another. And Lord, bless the work done here today and in the days ahead, that it may bear good fruit for the benefit of all. In your name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilman Foley?
Here.
Councilman Grubbs?
Here.
Councilman Bastian?
Here.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Here.
Mayor Burnett?
Here, we have a full quorum tonight. Tracy, I appreciate the fact that you made it back. This time, don't let a tree fall on you while you're trying to cut it down. You know, that was a nice little excuse on your part, just because you had to have your knee surgically reattached.
You know, better days.
That's okay. I also appreciate the fact that you have to make sound judgment tonight and have withheld the painkillers until afterwards. Reed, I know that you had a work obligation that was in the works for several months, but we missed you as well, so we're glad to have you back tonight as well.
Glad to be back.
With that, City Manager, storm update, please.
All right. And I know we have a full agenda tonight, and I did a longer presentation last time, so I'm going to touch on just a couple of things. The first one, debris removal. So the main thing we've been doing since the storm is working on debris removal. We can get the graphic up on the screen. So we started debris removal basically 3 weeks ago on October 16, when we had our debris management site and trucks being certified. So at that point, we've been about 3 weeks. Debris removal benchmarks, typically a storm of this magnitude, it takes about 90 days, 3 months to pick up all the debris from a storm of this scale. Typically a good benchmark on how much you can get in a day is about 2,000 cubic yards. So that's what we went into it with in the start. So the expectations, thinking it's probably around Christmas, early New Year when it's fully picked up. Things have gone a whole lot better for debris removal than that. So resources available. At our peak, we had about 25 units out there picking up. At one point, we had 5 of the larger trucks. We're a little bit lower than that now. We had one company we have put up on the northwest side of town. We put another company in the southeast side and had them work together. And we put city crews over on the west of the interstate where there was lighter debris, and then had them all work towards the center. The one company on the southeast side took 2 of their trucks and sent them to St. Pete for a whole lot more money. So that slowed down the southeast going up. One of the things that we prioritized during this process, though, was what we found in talking to some of the people who had been flooded in Ian. There were people had to figure out what to do. They were on top of, I know how to deal with my house. So the storm debris, the construction debris out of the houses was getting put out quicker. And we didn't want it to have to sit in people's yards for weeks and weeks. So we prioritized the bigger trucks and sent them into the areas where the flooding was and went through and picked up as much of that as fast as we could get it. So we realized that's going to require another pass to pick up some of it as more stuff comes out, but we still thought it was the better thing to pick up everything we could as fast as we could in those areas to limit the amount of time that it was there. And then the smaller trucks that are out there are out plucking the smaller debris piles and working with them. You'll see some unusual stuff because it's not used to seeing a bunch of F-250s and 150s running around picking up debris. So some of them are pulling the lighter stuff off the top because they can't get the bigger stuff. Some of them we've had to, you're dealing with contractors. So we're trying to get them to pick up all the piles in a methodical manner. But we have been able to, in 3 weeks, get trucks in every part of the city doing something. So I think there's probably, unless you're in the center area, generally where Taylor is, between south of Taylor, north of Taylor, that little circle in there is probably the least hit so far, but everything else has had a substantial amount of effort in there. We're still running into, we're catching contractors who were taking money from people to take away the debris, and then we're catching them dumping it in the right of way. And so we'll clear an area, and then new debris will show up that somebody will put out there. So that slows the process a little bit. And there's people clearing live. You can see green stuff, so you know that didn't come from the hurricane. And then we also got Waste Pro out there picking up as well. So they'll pick up stuff that's legitimate size as they're going forward. I do think this is a testament that the Public Works Department, who had to control all these 25 units while they're out there, they were working off of contracts that we signed. We talked about this last time. The Hurricane Helene had just come through, and a lot of the resources in the country were up in the Carolinas and Georgia picking up. So we were really concerned at the beginning that we would have a hard time getting debris picked up in a timely manner. And I think Tom and his staff have done an outstanding job. I don't think they've had maybe 2 days off since the hurricane total. And this period of time, they're working 10, 12-hour days constantly. And he did a really good job of targeting them in areas where we could get the biggest impact as quick as we possibly could. So I think that's one thing that's gone well, is picking it up and getting it out of here as we go forward. So hopefully that's positive. We have picked up close to 50,000 cubic yards, a little over that right now. We had estimated the total at about 80,000 cubic yards. So we're over halfway there. One of the news outlets, I think it was Spectrum, did an analysis of all the cities in the area, and the last two we saw, we were the highest amount of debris removal of any city in the county. So again, I think the Public Works staff for everything they've done to get out there, and their support from a couple other departments that are helping them get it done. So that's the story on debris collection. If you have any questions on that, I'll answer them. Otherwise, I'll go on to the next slide.
Go ahead.
So a couple of you to ask about this. One of the things that we heard quite a bit about was, there's a lot of people that lived here for a long time. I haven't been here that long, but the long-term residents have made comments that have lived here for a long time, and I've not seen this level of flooding. And people are definitely trying to figure out, well, why? And so we went back 100 years, and so the older data we had to go to the National Weather Service for. The modern stuff comes from we have a weather station at the Public Works building off Oak, and we also have one on the police station. And so we went back 100 years and looked at rain events over time, and what we didn't pick up every single rain event. What we were looking for is the ones in the ballpark of 10 inches of rain. The break you see about 1990, we talked about this last time, that's when the city put modern stormwater requirements in effect. So at 1990s, we started seeing a little bit more storm in that area, but we still only built the systems at, and it's a generalization, it's real complex, but 11 inches of rain in 24 hours is generally what those ponds are designed to hold. A little bit less, they start running off through they have out hoses or pipes that take the water out, various ways to describe them, but essentially it's like your bathtub has a halfway up the way, you've got a little way for the water to get out. That happens at about 9 inches. At about 11 inches, it starts to overflow. So we put those in effect in the 90s, and one of the differences you could see is you can see all these other storms in here, and just looking at going back to Francis, which prior to Ian and Milton was probably considered one of the worst storms we had. Maybe there will be people who disagree with me, but what I've generally found is that Ian is considered the worst hurricane in Port Orange's history. And Milton is second to most people. Now, there may be individuals who had trees fall on their house or other damage in the other storms, but these were both really bad storms. And up until the last 4 years, we hadn't had that amount of rainfall. So one of the reasons as to why these are worse is because we have never had that type of storm in the history of the city. We don't have stormwater systems built for that type of storm. You can look at this and see it does look like a pretty dangerous pattern, that if it's going to keep going at that much, that's, you're going to be looking at building to that pattern, not building at 5 to 6 inches of rain, but building, anticipating that 10 inches may be a more common occurrence in 24 hours in these storms. So we were just wanting people to understand the pattern, that this is a fairly recent phenomenon to have this much rain in that short period of time. and the system, the system, particularly the older areas of the system, were not built to handle that amount of rain. So as we're moving forward with solutions that we will be talking with you about going over time, the solutions are going to be looking at definitely the fact that it may be more common that we're having these stronger storms. So that was all I had to go over tonight. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you, or find somebody that will get staff here as well to help.
Okay. There's also, the combination, there's so many different combinations. That's just an examination of the rainfall. And certainly wind was more of a factor in this storm. I mean, it's amazing how each storm has its own personality. Council have any questions for the city manager at this time?
This time.
Okay, all right. With that, we'll go into the City Council Town Center CRA Joint Special Meeting. The council is in recess. The CRA and Joint Council is now in session. Call the roll for the Town Center CRA.
Donald Burnett,
Here?
Drew Bastian,
Here.
Scott Stiltner,
Here.
Tracy Grubbs,
Here.
Michael Benedict, Chairman Jonathan Foley.
Here. Roll call for council.
Drew Bastian,
Here.
Scott Stiltner,
Here.
Jonathan Foley,
Here.
Tracy Grubbs,
Here.
Mayor Don Burnett.
Here. Are there any objections to the notice of meeting? Hearing none, the notice is accepted. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the August 21st, 2024 joint special meeting of the City Council?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. With that, items C3 and C4 are related, so I'd like to open items C3 and C4 to be discussed together by the City Council and the CRA. Each item will be voted on by the City Council and the CRA, with Chairman Foley calling for the vote for the CRA, and I'll call the vote for the City Council. Item C3 for consideration is the approval of the Third Amendment to the contract to sale of Riverwalk property of Bristol Port Orange Partners LLC. Can you read that into the record, Mr. Attorney?
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approving the Second Amendment to the River Yard Master Development Agreement and Conceptual Development Plan for approximately plus or minus 11 acres, generally located at the northeast corner of Dunlawton Avenue and Ridgewood Avenue, and including properties located at 3641 Ridgewood Avenue and 3840 Ridgewood Avenue, clarifying permitted uses, revising the location of public parking, revising the multifamily parking ratio, and updating the conceptual development plan layout, providing for conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
That is, we'll need two motions, one on behalf of the CRA and one on behalf of the council. The CRA motion, may I have a motion?
Move to approve Third Amendment to the contract for sale of Riverwalk property to Bristol Port Orange Partners LLC, and authorizing CRA chair and agency clerk to execute all necessary documents.
I'll second that. We have a motion, proper second on behalf of the CRA. Council motion?
Move to approve the Third Amendments to the contract for sale of Riverwalk property to Bristol Port Orange Partners LLC, and authorizing mayor and city clerk to execute all necessary documents.
All right. I'll second that.
We have a motion, proper second on behalf of council. The other item for consideration, item C4, ordinance number 2024-19. Matt, could you read that into the record, please?
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 6, Section 6-3, relating to the list of properties exempt from the general prohibition on possession and consumption of alcohol on public property owned or controlled by the City of Port Orange, and establishing certain parameters for the consumption thereof, providing for codification, repealing conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
On behalf of the CRA, may I have a motion?
Move to recommend approval of the proposed Second Amendment to the River Yard Master Development Agreement as set forth in ordinance number 2024-19, consistent with the Port Orange Town Center plan as amended, and authorizing CRA chair and agency clerk to execute all necessary documents.
A second.
We have a motion and a proper second on behalf of the CRA. On behalf of the council, may I have a motion?
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-19, approving the Second Amendment to the River Yard Master Development Agreement, and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second on behalf of the council. With that, Wayne, who do we have here?
Tim Burbank, Community Development. First of all, the Third Amendment to the contract for sale. There's two kind of aspects to this amendment. First is to extend the closing date Currently, it's middle September 2025. This would extend it to the end of December 2025, so 3.5-month extension. The other aspect is that it establishes a requirement to have the site plan submitted to staff by the end of July for review of 2025. And the third item on that is that it allows for the transfer of 3 properties that are currently under contract and 1 that has been purchased by Bristol to the city of Port Orange until they close on the project. This basically ensures that the 4 out parcels are combined with the remaining 11 acres that we have there to make a better developable site. If Bristol does not close on the property, then the city would retain those parcels, and that positions us for future redevelopment if needed, that we have those 4 out parcels then. So those are the 3 concepts of the sales agreement.
Okay. Council comments or questions? There being none, thank you, Tim. Would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us.
Mayor, just one correction. The second ordinance block I read is actually for the next item. You don't have an ordinance block for that first item, which is the agreement itself. So just pretend that second ordinance block was read at the next one.
You got that?
Okay, thank you for extending my imagination. I got you. With that, any other comments? Chairman Foley, will you call for the vote on the CRA?
Yes, for the CRA, we have a motion and a proper second on the floor. Please call the roll on, I believe it's on C3.
On C3.
On C3.
Donald Burnett,
Yes.
Drew Bastian,
Yes.
Scott Stiltner,
Yes.
Tracy Grubbs,
Yes.
and Chairman Jonathan Foley.
Yes.
And you need to announce the vote total.
5-0.
Okay. On behalf of council, call the roll.
Drew Bastian,
Yes.
Scott Stiltner,
Yes.
Jonathan Foley,
Yes.
Tracy Grubbs,
Yes.
Mayor Don Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. And for C4, would you ask the CRA for a vote?
Yes, for the CRA, we have a motion and a proper second on the floor for ordinance 2024-19, the second amendment to the River Yard Master Development Agreement. Please call the roll.
Donald Burnett,
Yes.
Drew Bastian,
Yes.
Scott Stiltner,
Yes.
Tracy Grubbs,
Yes.
Chairman Jonathan Foley.
Yes, and that's a 5-0 as well.
And on behalf of council, call the roll.
Drew Bastian,
Yes.
Scott Stiltner,
Yes.
Jonathan Foley,
Yes.
Tracy Grubbs,
Yes.
Mayor Don Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Brings us to C5, first reading of ordinance number 2024-23. Matt, if you'd read that one into the record.
That's where I'm going to need you to pretend, but I can read it again if you'd like.
I'd like you to.
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 6, Section 6-3 relating to the list of properties exempt from the general prohibition of possession and consumption of alcohol on public property owned or controlled by the City of Port Orange, and establishing certain parameters for the consumption thereof, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
On behalf of the CRA, do I have a motion?
Move to recommend approval of the proposed ordinance number 2024-23, consistent with the Port Orange Town Center Plan as amended.
A second. And on behalf of council, do I have a motion?
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-23, approving ordinance number 2024-23, amending Code of Ordinances, Chapter 6, Article 1 on alcoholic beverages, and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
You're ready to pass, I could tell. You got, see, it must be the injury. You're running a little slow there, Tracy. With that, Wayne, who do we have to present on this one?
In Bourbon Community Development, over the course of the couple of years, we've been doing a lot of improvements and code amendments to this area to help the economic development of it then. This is one thing that has been discussed. This would allow for open containers on essentially the concrete and paver pathway in the Riverwalk area there. It would only pertain to the businesses that are adjacent to it then, so that would be the future Tiki Docks and the interim use that Bristol is putting at the south end of where this would end in. We did look at other Riverwalk areas throughout Florida and Georgia and kind of looked at some of the requirements they had then. Basically, there will be a required specific to-go cup that would only be issued by those restaurants there, limited to 1 drink only. The time frame from 11 a.m. to 12 midnight then, which corresponds with the hours of operations of those restaurants then. And then also too, signage will be installed there to identify people where the limits are on that then. So staff is recommending approval.
Okay. Council and CRA, comments or questions of staff?
No.
Or any other comments or questions? There being none, would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Final comments or questions? There being none, Chairman Foley, if you do your part.
Yes. For the CRA, we have a motion and a proper second on the floor for item C4, ordinance 2024-23, amending Code of Ordinance, Chapter 6, Article 1, alcoholic beverages. Please call the roll.
Donna Burnett,
Yes.
Drew Bastian,
Yes.
Scott Stiltner,
Yes.
Tracy Grubbs,
Yes.
Chairman Jonathan Fuller.
Yes. And so 5-0.
There you go. Nice job on the dramatic pause there. For council, we have a motion and a proper second for item C. I'm sorry, the C. Yes, the C5, right? You got it on my script wrong. For item
say the script?
C5, which is ordinance 2024-23, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 6, Article 1, alcoholic beverages. On behalf of council, call the roll.
Drew Bastian,
Yes.
Scott Stiltner,
Yes.
Jonathan Foley,
Yes.
Tracy Grubbs,
Yes.
Mayor Don Burnett.
Yes, 5-0.
Mayor, when I read mine aloud, I said C4. Would the attorney like me to redo that vote as C5 or?
We're good.
We're good. Okay.
You referred to the right ordinance when you read the rest of it.
All right. Just making sure he's comfortable with it.
Amen to that. There, any other business come before us for the CRA? If, when there being none, the joint special meeting is adjourned and we resume as council. On the consent agenda items 7 through 10, does anybody have any comments from the public on anything to do with consent agenda items 7 through 10?
I think we got one. Maybe not.
There being none, may I have a motion for the approval of the agenda for the evening?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The agenda for the evening is approved. May I have a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second, to approve items 7 through 10 on consent. Call the roll.
Councilman Foley,
Yes.
Councilman Grubbs,
Yes.
Councilman Bastian,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Brings us to item 11, Cops for Christmas program. We have a
Where is it? Wonderful
Officer
Gene.
Wayne Jean. Where is he hiding?
He's right there. They're pointing at him.
Yep, he's gonna get called out, isn't he?
There he is. There he is.
Hello. You gotta watch this one.
He's watching you.
No, I was gonna say, that's your job.
So I'm Officer Gene with Port Orange Police Department. Hello, everybody. I'm here to speak about Cops for Christmas. This is something that started in 2020 and has continued each year, gradually getting larger. 2020 was less than 100 children, and last year there was 400 children that received a Christmas from Cops for Christmas. Cops for Christmas is a joint effort between Port Orange Police Department and Spouses Back in Blue. Last year, although it was 400 children, seemed to be the smoothest year we've had so far. So we are getting better. This year, you know, I know there's a lot of bad stuff that happened to a lot of families' homes and stuff through the hurricane, and it's a struggle that we all have to go through as Floridians. But I would like to recognize some of the people that and companies that actually make this happen. Besides the thousands of citizens in Port Orange that donate toys through our toy drive, there are a few companies that are always right there with us. Walmart, if you look at the back of the room, there's a Walmart employee. ViStar, Crash Recovery, Eddie here, who owns Crash Recovery, the year we gave away a car.
Oh, that's right.
This is the gentleman that donated the car. So we try to do everything within our means to provide everything we can. Obviously, we can't provide Xboxes, PS5s, stuff like that, because at the price that they run at, we could help another child. So this year, we started in June. The packets have already went out to the schools. For those who don't know how this works, we send out packets to the schools. the school counselors receive the packets. At that time, the school counselors pick the children. By picking the children, they send the packets home to the parents, and if the parents agree to, they send in the information, and at the bottom of each page of the child that they have is a list what the kid wishes for this year for Christmas. Like I said, we do everything within our power to get these items. Walmart, big supporter. Target came on board last year.
Yeah.
They are a big supporter now. Last year there was 27 companies just in Port Orange, 27 businesses. That made this it's a lot of hard work. And right now we have 30 individuals that come to the meetings from June to the time we end. They are there. Lord have mercy, I couldn't do it myself. I'm telling you right now, it's definitely a joint effort between the community, the city of Port Orange, the police department, Thrive Church. Everyone that's involved deserves, recognition for what they're doing.
Sure.
It warms my heart. And like I've said, every time I've came to one of these meetings, when we get the list, we go out 2 days and we shop for the children. We purchase the items that we can find on the list. Officers at the PD adopt families. Members of Thrive Church adopt families. Last year, Walmart management theirself took on, I believe it was 30 children. So the community coming together is what makes Cops for Christmas happen. This year, we've already sent the packets out to the schools. We've already got them back. And there's a lady with Thrive Church named Jessica. She deserves a big thumbs up. She actually breaks it all down for each kid, what toys they want, what they, if they need hygiene products, stuff in that manner. And then once we go out and purchase it, she redoes the list to what we don't have. So the second time we go shopping, we can try to find it then. Port Orange Police Department, Chief Marino, I know I drive him crazy at times with Cops for Christmas, but the faith that he has in not just me, but Miss Odetta, who runs Victims Advocate, the people that are backing the Cops for Christmas event, it is overwhelming. Every Christmas morning that we've been doing this, I have woken up and I have thought to myself, the children that are getting to open up these gifts that wouldn't have them or have as many. And that right there in itself is welcoming. It's just warming, and I don't want to get emotional right now, so.
Come
Sounds
on,
like a little bit too
Gene.
late
You
for
can
you.
you can do it. You can do it.
So what we do is we get the list, we wrap the toys. The people who adopt the families, as in Thrive Church members, Walmart, if they're adopting a family, they do not wrap the toys. And that's for the safety of the children. Number one, that's the number one go, is they're getting gifts and it's safe. We wrap the gifts, we have a big wrapping day, and then after that, we write the kid's name on there and we leave the from part blank. Because that's for the parent to put on there.
Right.
When I was a kid, I didn't know where Christmas was coming from.
Yeah.
All I knew is my mom busted her butt to get us Christmas. And I know what it feels like to grow up not having the things other people have, or just missing that holiday dinner, the Christmas dinner.
Sure.
Not only do we provide Christmas gifts, and by we I mean the community of Port Orange, to children, but we also provide food to every family. The Victims Advocate program has Crane Lakes that provides food to them, and we bag it up, and everybody that does this is volunteering. And past the point of getting the list, we also opened up to a second holiday shop. And what that is for the children, for the parents who still need help for their children. They didn't make it on the list. They call the Port Orange Police Department. They call me. I mean, they've already made my number public anyway, so. And they get on the list. And the way that works is the parent comes, not the child, none of the children. And the parent gets to pick out from what we have, what they think is best for their children. Last year, each child got approximately 10 gifts apiece. And I think about it, 10 gifts, 400 children. That's a lot. That is, the community is amazing. And then the 23rd of December last year, we piled up several Port Orange police cars, my pickup truck, and we went out to the communities in Port Orange on the 23rd. Lit up the sirens and lights, watched the kids come out, a lot of parents wondering what was going on. And we started handing out toys to kids to surprise them. One of the big things about Cops for Christmas is not only giving to the children, but it's also bringing back that relationship between law enforcement and the community. Because that's one thing that's missing in a lot of areas. And I've served the community of Port Orange. April will be 14 years. And I can say one thing about our citizens in Port Orange. They do love their law enforcement, and it shows. And we also loaded up 4 South Daytona cruisers twice.
Wow.
And they went out and got to do the same thing with the children in their communities. This year we're going to do it again. Every year it's my goal to continue doing this. And it's not just me doing it. I'm the one that talks about it because nobody wants to talk. But the community of Port Orange, they have a great heart. And I've seen it, and it's overwhelming, at times. This year I had a lady call me on my phone, actually Halloween. I spoke to her in May, and she works for a hotel in the Shores. I won't name which one. And I told her she needed help to call me. She's a single mom, working her butt off to keep the electric on, the water on. And she has a 2-year-old handicapped child. She called me this Halloween, and I responded right back to her. She's on the list. That's what it's about, helping those in need, not only with toys, but with food. And that's all I got at this time. Anybody got any questions? I have flyers.
I was going to say, Wayne, you got to tell people how to reach you. So that how can they reach you to help you with this?
You can call the Port Orange Police Department, 506-5800. You can call Victims Advocate Office, 506-5820. And we will be able to put you on the list if you haven't made the packets from the school. That's not an issue.
Okay.
I can't guarantee 10 gifts apiece.
This
I
year, I
can't
appreciate the
guarantee that.
fact you didn't give your wife's phone number out, so I'm sure she's appreciative of that as well.
She's very appreciative of it. But you can also email copsforchristmas25@gmail.com.
copsforchristmas25@gmail.com.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Social media pages?
Social media page, Spouses Back in Blue has Facebook, and we also have Instagram. Forgive me if I don't get right back to you. I'm not a 21-year-old. I don't know how to use it that well. Or I'm pretty sure if you message the Port Orange Police Department's Facebook page, we'll get back to you.
Excellent. Excellent.
Gene, the Spouses Back in the Blue also have a website?
Yes.
So is there information on there as well?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm not good at it. I have to call the
I got
people
you.
who built the website, and I tell them what to put on it, and then they put it on.
Okay.
So they've been very generous to me too. John's Appliance is another one that's generous.
Nice.
They donate material, so we're able to do this.
I mean, you guys have built more than just a community service. You've built a brand, and now people are used to this, and they're expecting that. I've already had several people, and I've also seen it on social media pages where people are asking, are they doing this again this year? So you built a brand, so you and the team and everybody behind that should be incredibly proud, because that's not easy. And you've set the bar pretty high. One of the things that I would love to see you guys do, I'm just giving you a suggestion not to put more on your plate. By the way, let us know what we can do to help. But I'd love to see this year, as you guys are going through the process, capture some good video, capture some good pictures, and let's work on putting together an annual promotional video that we can utilize and play every year, loop, update where it needs to be with the contacts and things like that. Okay. Because this isn't going anywhere, right? So this is going to get bigger and bigger. This is part of our community fabric now. So it's expected, and you've got an incredible team, and I can't imagine anybody in the community not being behind that. So just as a suggestion, embrace it as a brand, and let us know what we can do to help you with the brand and grow the brand, but also how we market that brand. We happen to have a PIO on staff here at the city, and I know the city manager and the whole city staff
there.
get behind all this. So
It's amazing to
there.
me that I don't care where you go in the United States, you're going to have that person that wants to try to catch you in gotcha moments. And I got news for you. We're all human. There's going to be a gotcha moment in anybody's life. And it's tough when those people are getting in your face with a gotcha moment and a camera, and you're wearing a uniform and a badge, and you're trying to do your job to protect us. I would like for some of them to get those gotcha moments when you're doing things like this. And if I know that they're not gonna, but if we can help get the word out, 99.9% of this community knows what you guys do on the road, but most of them don't know things like this, that we've got a police force and their spouses and their families, because everybody knows when a police officer does their job, they can't do it without their family behind them.
100%.
And I can tell by the back of the room that they're behind you guys, and they're behind this effort. And I want to extend my gratitude not just to you guys, but to your spouses as well. Council, anything else?
Just outstanding work, man. Love to see it
Good
every
job.
year.
Round it
Yeah,
out.
it's
Love that it
awesome.
keeps growing.
Let us know when packing day is, because it's this amazing sight, and if you guys are available,
Tracy has a big truck.
that's some chaos.
it is
is
organized chaos. It's wonderful to see.
And I'm not a great gift wrapper, so I just walk around and kind of like,
You hand out tape
Hey,
so
you need
so
tape?
they
I
can
got you.
wrap.
Yes.
Okay.
I do all bags, man. All bags.
watch it now. But last year, I would say there was approximately 200 volunteers
Yeah.
that helped us in wrapping, giving out gifts, handing out the gifts to
Yeah.
the family and the food. So it was very, very amazing to see last year happen.
Indeed, indeed.
Appreciate you doing this, Gene.
On your flyers, making sure that they're in the back for people to take also, so people can get them, and also make sure I get one so we can post that up on social media for you too.
Okay, yes, sir. Also, I'd like to add, if it's not just toy donations we take monetary donations, and that can be made to Spouses Back in the Blue. Every dollar helps.
There will also be donation boxes.
You do this at home too, I can tell.
There will also be donation boxes all around the city at different places, like
Okay.
Ritter's. There'll be one at the police department,
LA Fitness.
LA Fitness,
Nice.
5 Star Bank, Walmart, multiple different
Here
places.
at City Hall.
Here at City Hall.
Here at City Hall, if you want to drop off a new toy or anything,
Not right.
not wrapped. Yes, I just didn't want you to.
Unwrapped.
Thank
Okay.
you.
She's
As
got
you
your
can
back.
tell,
See, she keeps you straight.
she does 100%.
Brandy's got your back once again. All right, council, any other questions?
No.
I just appreciate what you do.
Yeah, for
And,
sure.
and you're the
All
kind
of
of guy that comes up here and you talk about it and you get your word out and you're never looking for recognition. And so we're going to recognize you and say thank you and we appreciate you.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. Great job.
Community effort, sir.
Yes, sir.
We want to thank our speakers, Officer Wayne Jean and his wife Brandy. That's right.
While we're up here, we're wanting to do, as we grow, we're wanting to try to donate a car every year. Fortunately, we can't do this year with all
Yeah.
the flooding and everything. We don't trust a lot of the vehicles come to our impound and stuff.
Sure.
But as of November 7th until December 23rd, for every tow that Crash Recovery does, we're donating $2 for every tow from that tow to your organization.
Wow.
To the bottom line.
Awesome.
Yep, I see it. Thank you.
Pete, okay, perfect.
Thank you, Officer
All right.
Jean. Public participation, Jake Johansson. Somebody
Where
I've
is
never
Jake?
heard of before. Councilman.
Jake Johansson, Port Orange. I talked to two of you yesterday after the election, and somebody hinted that they only have 2 meetings left and then it's all over. I felt I would take a little bit of time to share my appreciation for what you all did for me in 2015. 3 of you were sitting council members at the time. You gave me a chance to come in and be your city manager for a few years before I took a walk to the dark side of elected office. But I appreciate everything you all did for me, what you did for the city, and for the 2 new guys, and Wayne, my old co-worker, now the city manager. I appreciate all you've done for this great city. Every dream I had for this city didn't come true while I was here, but I can see, well, they left, but I can see the Riverwalk portion and other things are coming to fruition, so I appreciate it. And for some of the people that I know behind me are going to speak, probably on some of the Milton issues that they experienced. I know there's always confusion about who owns what, be it a road, be it a canal, be it some conveyance of water, and the city says it's the county says it's the state says not my problem, talk to the city and county. I share with the folks behind me. I'll leave some business cards with the clerk, and if the answer is it's the county's problem, and it is the county's problem, I'll do some research and get back with you, and we'll try to solve the problem at the county if the city and state can't. All right? So thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
Appreciate you.
And Kristen Johansson. Are you guys related somehow?
We need to combine for 6 minutes.
Kristen Johansson, Port Orange. I'm here representing our Chamber of Commerce. I sit on our board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce, and I just wanted to, first of all, let you all know that this Friday is the final day of our Leadership 2025 class.
Nice.
And you all have sent quite how many this year from Port Orange? 21 total, but you guys have, I think, 5 from Port Orange. So we want to thank you guys for the support every year. It's been a great program. You've had some great people participating, and we appreciate that. And we invite you all to join us for graduation next Friday, the 15th. It's a breakfast, so you can go to the Chamber website to register for that if you are interested in attending. Over the course of the next month, we have our standard activities that we do each month for networking and support for each other. We have our business after hours on Thursday the 14th at Dignity Memorial. We have our free and open to the public coffee and connections on Friday the 22nd, and we have our next morning mix and mingle at Flagsticks at Cypress Head on Friday, December 6th. So, and then we'll wrap up our year with our annual banquet on Wednesday, December 11th. So we just want to thank you guys for your continued relationship. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kristen.
Robert Reinhagen. There he is.
Reboot. Come on.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive North, Port Orange. I've been watching development take place on Williamson Boulevard at Summer Tree across from the pavilion. I believe that they're building an Aldi's grocery store there. I've been watching them put in 4 or 5 feet of fill, and as a result, there's only 2 small retention ponds on the northwest and the southwest corners of the property. So this is a huge property. They're going to put a grocery store and a big parking lot. Behind this property is a huge pond, but when you go back there behind it, you're in the parking lot area for the Kohl's and the Publix, and they have all these drains that feed into that pond. So I don't think that pond's going to help any stormwater collection for the new Aldi store. So I have to ask myself, where's all this stormwater going to go? We looked at that slide that they previously had up, and it indicated that they have a requirement for collecting 11 inches over the 24-hour period, 11 inches of rain for the entire plot. And so you only got these 2 small things, then you got 11 inches for this huge area, and how's it all going to stay in those 2 small ponds? And part of my concern is that these calculations, when they're done, are done by the staff, the planning staff, but this is after development has already been approved. And so we as a public never get to see how they do this. And what I'm asking you to do is to consider having staff give you a presentation as to what all their assumptions are, how they make their calculations, and defend whether these assumptions are all adequate given today's circumstances with the increased storm, the increased amount of water that the storms contain, and just give that sort of look so that you understand that. And one of the other things, I've been looking at this land development code, and it hasn't been very helpful, but one of the things it does say, it says that no site alteration shall result in any net reduction of the available floodplain storage. And to me, that whole property on the east side, or the west side rather, of Williamson, it was a great big huge floodplain. And over the years, slowly but surely, developers chip away at that property, and they fill in something here and they fill in something there, and so that now that property no longer is even probably considered a floodplain, and that's of some concern too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. And I've got Kenneth Haberman.
My name is Kenneth Haberman. I live at 4589 Terrace Village Drive, or Terrace Village Retention Pond, if you will. I've lived there a few days since April 1994. When I moved in, there was a dead-end retention pond at the end of the street and a plan that the city had to hook it up to some type of dewatering device. The pipe was halfway buried in the easement. We watched them complete the project, and the water is supposed to go up in front of Brandy Hills into that empty retention pond. My understanding was that for some reason it was able to be bored, the overflow from Westport, the commercial development across the street from Herbert Street, over into the wetlands between Terrace Village Drive and Sandy Terrace Court. And this has exacerbated our problem tremendously. My house had inch and a half of rain, water in it from the retention pond during Ian, and by the grace of God, we didn't have it. It was about to start coming in when the rain stopped from Milton. I don't know if there's anything can be done, but I have noticed that the retention pond has never been touched in and of itself. I do not know. I know there's more land there and dirt that could be removed. I don't know if this will help the situation at all, but something needs to be done.
And I just want to make sure I'm getting the right reference here because I'm trying to look this right now because I see this visually. You're talking about the retention pond that's off of Hoyt.
That's
and
correct.
Tompkins. Okay.
And what they've done is there's a lift station on the corner where the water is picked up from the sewer system because that way it circumvents a number of regulations and having to deal with the storm water. And it is lifted up and pumped out. But that dirt area, I don't know if it can be expanded, if it will even help. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I have Joni Goddard.
Joni Goddard. I live at 3659 Donna Street, across from the Memorial Retention Pond. I was sent here by the people from Beacon Woods to speak on their behalf because most of them said they could not be here. But they want an update on what's going to happen. During Ian, we all got like 12 to 15 inches in our house, which we never ever had before the retention pond was put in. We was told there was nowhere for the water to go. So I don't understand why they put a retention pond in to help drainage if there's no place to go. And we never flooded before. And like you said, we didn't have that much rain before, but I've been there 35 years. We weathered 3 hurricanes back to back, constant rain where everybody flooded, we didn't flood. So I can't really say these 2 storms were the most rain because we've had worse storms. Like I said, there's just constant for 3 days and solid. So we just want an update. They're concerned that the lift stations are not working. And I was told 2 years ago when I was concerned and contacted stormwater drainage and the mayor and everybody, they said they was getting an engineer to get on the problem. And then the last meeting, they said that there was going to be culverts put in on the street, but
On Jackson.
yeah, and the engineer, and Oak Street is what's really flooded, but the engineer, they said that that would not really take care of the problem. So now I was like, why put them in if they said it's not going to take care of the problem? So they just want to see if you guys have an update on what the engineer is saying or why they're doing that, if it's not going to help, and if there's a way to even just drain the ponds down before the hurricanes. I have a ditch right in front of my house that's full of water when we don't have a month or 2 months of rain. But it's full because that pond evidently is leaking into that ditch already. And it's totally full even with the road when it doesn't rain for a month or 2 at a time. It's just crazy. There's a big problem there. And everybody has been emailing, everybody's been complaining and not getting anything done. So, do you guys have an update at all on what they're doing?
Rob?
Yes or no?
We'll talk about all that during council comments so we get everybody's questions.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Michael Moore.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Gentlemen, ladies. My name is Michael Moore, and I live in the Portona neighborhood at 908 4th Street. As most of you know, that is right next to Meadowline Commons. New development that's being built, 30 acres that's been trees wiped out and everything. I was here during the talks about Madeline Commons, trying to get them to lower the number of homes from 250 to 150. Apparently we got some headway on that. However, we found some problems with the development itself. After this hurricane, we ended up getting an immense amount of water. We got more water than we got with Ian. The water went higher up our road, higher in our houses, and it came up at an incredible, astonishing rate. I was outside at 2:30 in the morning trying to get water out of my backyard. The front yard, I could see the road perfectly clear. Within about 45 minutes, the road was covered and the water was already coming up in our house. I know it was raining hard. I know how fast it was raining. I don't need to be told that again. I completely understand. But the water had nowhere to go. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about why. That morning, when the water got up to its height around high tide, the water was still draining. The water was already leaving my house when the rain pretty much stopped. It was already going out of my house. So it was able to drain. I went in my kayak, went down to the drains, didn't feel anything in them. The drains were still flowing, but at a substantially low rate. When the water finally receded, I went down and started putting the stick in the sand and feeling that there was sand inside all these drains. All of our neighborhoods have grass in everything. About 4 feet of sand was put into Madeline Commons. The drains were packed. If you take a look, there's some pictures on here that relate to different areas. Not only were the drains packed, but if you look down some of these ditches, I've taken pictures, and there are multitudes of trees and other brush. All it takes is a piece of plastic to slow that water from draining out as well. If you get sand from the beach into your shower, what happens? Stops draining, starts backing up. If you look on the second page, I've done the hard math for you. There's some information there about how much sand I saw in the drain. I talked to one of the gentlemen, Juno, over at the city, and he said it was 30-inch drains that come through our neighborhood there. Based on this math, that's the percentage blocked at each inch of sand. And on the front page, you saw there were inches on each thing of sand. Today, I was happy to see they were coming through. They were clearing out our drains. The guys from the city were out there doing good work. And I do appreciate that. However, I really feel at this point, someone needs to contact me and we need to have a sit down. More than 3 minutes. I completely understand giving the police the 20 minutes for talking about that great program they're doing. I'm all for it 100%. But somebody here needs to contact me because I've been getting stonewalled and it's getting to the point where it's getting serious. Okay. Again, please look over this. Someone please reach out to me. Reed, you're my district. Somebody please contact me so we can sit down and talk about this in depth before it gets to a escalated state.
Do me a favor and send me an email. Just start with your phone number. Like just so I have it. Or you can write it down for me.
Thank you very much. Got it right here.
That's even better. I've got it.
I need the card back, but just you copy it from that. Virginia Farnetti.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, Council People, Manager. Virginia Farnetti, The Woods, Greenleaf Square. As you may be aware, the subdivision has flooded. It's never flooded in 47 years. And I got that from my neighbors who've lived there for 47 years. They're elderly, they can't be here tonight. And I'm not sure why it's flooding now, but some of the reasons going around is because the dam at Rose Bay broke in Ian. They temporarily fixed it with sandbags. 2 years later, it's still temporarily fixed with sandbags. Other things that seem to be spreading around is that some of the other subdivisions are draining into Spruce Creek and the area waters around us, and they can't handle it. And others, I don't know if you have the rumors or what's being said, is that there is pumps that aren't adequate, they're not big enough, they're not being used properly, they're not being used when they should. So all of these things are part of it, I think. The other thing is, if you go to the dead end at Trailwood, there is culverts on 5 to 7 houses, and then they stop. And then there's a thin ditch on some of the houses. And then there's people that filled in the thin ditch so that they could have parking area. And this is city property. And it shouldn't have been filled in, I don't believe. But I guess I want to know if that ditch was deeper. If we had culverts, would that make a difference? So I guess my questions for you, and I don't know where to get these answers other than to hear, is when can we expect the dam to be fixed properly? And the culverts and the houses, would that help the situation, help the water if there was a bigger ditch, if it wasn't filled in spots and so forth? And about the pumps, are they working properly? Are they big enough? Are they being used how they need to be? And with all the new building, sending everything down to us, is that part of the issue also? So those are the questions that I would like to see answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Roz Melanson?
Hi, I'm Roz Melanson, 566 Moonpenny Circle. So I'm here for a little bit different reason, but yet not that different. I came before you in about 2006, and the previous mayor had issued this proclamation. It's an ancient belief that doing good deeds brings good rewards, and doing evil brings evil returns. This is a concept that transcends all cultures. Originally from China, it's guided by truth, compassion, and tolerance, the practice of Falun Dafa. And many would agree that our society desperately needs uplifting, universal values like these now. Yet people in China who practice Falun Gong have been arrested, tortured, and killed for their organs for the past 25 years. And independent investigators have suggested that the death toll is massive. Sir Jeffrey Nice, the former prosecutor of the former president of Serbia, led the China Tribunal in 2019 and concluded that any entity doing business with China in any sector or capacity is doing business with a criminal entity. The U.S. government has passed resolutions, H.R. 343, and Florida legislature has concurrent House memorials, 791 and SM 1108. Basically, I'm coming before you today to tell you not about just these atrocities, but also our community is really suffering. People feel like they've been left behind. Some people are very vulnerable. They are, don't have anybody to help them. I have a 96-year-old neighbor who was alone. Her husband died after the rebuilding of the first house during the first flood. So I want to just emphasize one thing. If I can take away this today, our city needs truth, compassion, and tolerance desperately. From my understanding, without compassion, people no longer care about each other. Without tolerance, our neighbors harbor anger and hatred toward one another. Without truth, lies, deception, and selfishness permeate the landscape. I truly hope that all of you and our community will embrace the fundamental principles of truth, compassion, and tolerance. If anyone is interested in learning more about Falun Dafa and the exercises, you can go to falundafa.org, or for the persecution, you can go to faluninfo.net. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we got Chuck Hellman.
Hi, Chuck Hellman, Sugar Force, 823 Sugar House Boulevard. And yes, we flooded twice now. And that's why I'm not here now. We had a hoarder that lived across the street, 828. You all know him. He's coming back.
Yep.
Slowly but surely. Code enforcement has been informed, and they're driving around more and more. I'm sure the police department will not be happy that he's coming back. I'm sure the fire department will not be happy that he's coming back.
No way.
But, before, the only reason why he's gone now is because he burned down 4 houses. One was his own. 2 of them were single moms, and the 2 single moms have moved 3 times in the last 2 years because of this man. He was over there today. He's bringing plants in. So what happens after he brings the plants in? You know why he's bringing the plants in? Because he needs a place to hide when he wants to go to the bathroom, because he doesn't have indoor plumbing or outdoor plumbing. His outdoor plumbing is a bucket or in a bush that we have to look at. So I'm just letting I'm letting the city know, the county know, that do something this time. Before, we looked at him for over 10 years before he burned himself down. And then even when he burned himself down, he still lived there. So we are, you know, it's bad enough that our property has gone down in value because of 2 floods in 2 years. And now it's going down because of he's back. There's got to be something. I mean, he's got all these fines against him. Or that's what I hear. I don't think he's paying anything. The people on both ends, they got letters from code enforcement that they had to mow their grass and keep up their, you know, and trim their bushes, whatever. And then he just comes in and parks his vehicles, and they're not nice vehicles. This is the eyesore. And he told me before, don't look at it. What am I supposed to do? Walk out of my house backwards? I mean, you know, yes, he has rights, but I don't want my right to only have to look left, so I don't have to look his way.
Gotcha.
So I'm just bringing it to your attention. Hopefully code enforcement group will be around more. Hopefully the police department will be around more, and fire department can just drive around, you know, just let them know that we're here. All right? Thank you.
Thank you. And we got Tammy Garozo and Michael Sampson.
Hi, good evening. I'm Tammy. This is my husband, Mike. We were here 4 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago after Milton, of course. I want to say again for the record, I bought my house 25 years ago in '99. In 2004, we flooded. I showed my butt here. I did show out a little bit. It was on video. There is no drainage in this specific area of Port Orange that we're talking about. It is the lift station 19. I emailed today, Mayor, I emailed this to you. You forwarded it to the city manager. I want everybody to have this. I have questions about lift station 19. That specific area, not all of Port Orange. I realize that there is some drainage issues in Port Orange, and you guys are working on that. From what I hear, a 7 to 10 year plan. There is no plan for this pump station 19 area. It has been a problem for over 20 years that I've lived here. I heard today, I don't know if this is true or not, that the pump was put in the 70s. That can't be true, right? One pump in all these years. But not only that, I'm the child of an engineer, so I have questions now. Where is this so-called pump? I've never seen it. I've lived in the area 25 years. When was it installed? Was it the 70s? It can't possibly be the same pump that's 50 years old, right? How much water is it expected to divert? Is it capable of handling these bigger storms? If not, why wasn't another pump installed as the impending storm came? How is the pump maintained? Is somebody sent to check on it? Is there like a crew in charge of the maintenance of that specific pump? Since this is the only thing I have to save my little area, could I go check on it? Could I start a crew? Is it gas, battery, generator? I'm shocked, but somebody I think told me today that it was Wi-Fi. I can't get Wi-Fi to work at my house. How do we have a pump that runs on Wi-Fi? Why did it fail? If the pump failed, which is what happened, pump 19 lift station failed during Ian and failed during Milton. Why did it fail? Was it the Wi-Fi? And why is there only one pump? I'm still blown away that an engineer, any engineer, I'm sure it wasn't you, sir. I'm sorry about last time I went off 3 weeks ago. You were not the engineer here 20 years ago, obviously, but an engineer came up with the consensus that this was acceptable, one pump for this area. Also, I have a ton of other questions. There's 150 home subdivision, like this gentleman was saying, the drone company, being built 2 blocks away. Why would you put a new subdivision in an area that already has no infrastructure? That rise in ground level is causing the water to come even more. So where my house didn't flood all these years, it's now 6 inches higher and is flooding. Please read what I sent you, sir. Please read. I have questions. I want you to stop the build. Stop that 150 home subdivision from going in. It will save us. Put a retention pond there. There.
Okay. Amanda, did I have any more?
We just had one drop off.
Okay. And Lorraine Becker.
Good evening. Here we are again. Today I'd like to talk about hazard mitigation. I think that's the direction that we're going now, since we all realize that we need to save our communities from flooding. So I live in the community around Sugar Forest between Madeline and Herbert. It has been a hot topic of discussion regarding flooding. At least 30 or more houses flooded back there, include mine. And the problem that I see, and I'd like to offer a solution, is we are at the top of the chain for the drainage. We have the Sugar Plum Pond, which flows into a ditch behind Sugar Forest. Then it comes down Nixon Lane, and then it goes into the Nixon Lane Pond. And then from there, it drains over to Mr. Moore's community over there, which continues to flood the Herbert Street area and then goes to the outflow at Halifax River. So I spoke with Juno at Engineering at length to try and get some understanding of this. And it appears that that ditch that has been in question for at least 2 years now is a defunct HOA ditch built by Sugar Forest. So it's private easement. So it's up to us as homeowners to try and keep it clean. That ditch is full. Let me tell you, we have had trees fall in that ditch. Nothing is moving back there in terms of water from the Sugar Pond, the Sugar Plum Pond. Now, the city built Sugar Plum Pond and the city built Nixon Lane Pond, but you decided it's okay to use the ditch that runs from one pond to the other. That's okay. You're going to use that to flow the water, but you're not going to clean it, okay? Because now it's private easement again. So, why don't we consider take it, eminent domain, take the ditch, do something to help relieve the 30 homes that are flooding back there, 30 at least. Do you know one of the homes, just one that I know of, is on the buyout list now? Okay? On the buyout list. That house, $320,000 appraisal pre-storm. $320,000. Do you think that we can clean a ditch for $320,000? I think it's worth that much rather than 30 homes flooding, and you perhaps end up with 10 homes on the buyout list. So let's just try and not reinvent the wheel here. Let's take something that's already there. It's a ditch. It's flowing from your pond to the next pond. Maintain it. Please try to do something to help relieve the water. I literally watched the water come to the top of the ditch and flow right into my house twice now. 2.5 feet the first time, 1.5 feet the second time. This never used to happen. But now we are desperate to have these ditches clean. I've talked about it once before. Many homeowners in Sugar Forest are desperate for this. Clean out. Okay? It's just one of the solutions. Eminent domain. You can have my ditch. Okay? Just do something with it to help all of us in the community. It is not worth the buyout that the city is trying to do. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Lord.
Thanks, Lord.
That's all. Council comments. First of all, I want to say to all the speakers, you'll be hearing conversation between council and staff here. Some of the things that will get discussed, some of the things won't. That's just the nature of things sometimes when you have stream of flow of consciousness. we'll be here afterwards. So if there's something you want to know more about, we'll be here afterwards. So Wayne will stay here till midnight if he has to. Which means his staff can't leave. I joke a little bit because I have to, but seriously, if you want to hang afterwards and have conversations, we'll be here. So with that, council comments. Let's start with Drew this time.
Well, the last meeting, all this was discussed, and it just keeps pouring in, and there isn't a fast solution.
No.
We have an engineer here who is almost completed a stormwater plan that's in the works, and then there'll be an action plan drawn up with that, and a lot of it still has to be funded. And so things are happening, and it is going to move slow because there's not an overnight solution. We met with I met with Wayne and Robin on Tuesday, and we saw a brief presentation with the storm totals and everything, and we got more information as the amount of water and the things that can hold, and it's just astronomical. If you have something that's designed for 11 inches of rainwater in 24 hours, and you get 20 inches or 15 inches in way less than that, where do you put that water? So the fix obviously is going to move slow, but the stormwater plan is in the works. He's been working on it since he got here almost 2 years ago, right? Or just 2 years ago. We're very active in Tallahassee. We've been pretty successful in getting money year after year. We kind of got shut out a little bit last year, but I know the new will be up there, and Robin and Wayne, and they'll be fighting and lobbying for more money so we can address more issues. So I know it's hard to do, but be patient, and if there is a maintenance issue that the city can do, they're going to prioritize those and go out and look at them and do those. Progress is happening, but again, we have to ask for your patience, and I know that's very hard to look you in the face and say be patient when bad things are happening. But like I said, myself, I don't know what the fix is, but we have an engineer who's working on a plan to help address it, and perhaps
It's not just him. He's given a lot of feedback to
Yeah.
the firm we've subcontracted
Yeah,
out. to do that plan.
and so, and the state and the county, everybody's gonna look at that and a plan and see. And, I mean, I don't know, I know the Nova Canal is a big issue, and it was designed decades and decades ago, and
It's
there's.
not an issue, it's a disaster.
Yeah, and short of a couple of outfalls, I believe the one, what did we say, Wayne? The one or the two that were identified that could be in our area were in excess of $70 million just for the two, and that's in our area. South Daytona has one that ends right at the river, and it doesn't go out into the river, so that water, when the high tide and those king tides, when that comes up in the surge, you can't put water into water. So those fixes that probably should have been addressed years ago by the other cities. Daytona has one, right? Or Holly Hill has one, and South Daytona has the one, and the engineer, I believe you told me, recommended at least 6, and so other cities are going to have to step up and try to get some of that water moving out towards the river from the Nova Canal. But again, that's a huge undertaking and a huge task, and we can't, the water that we're taking in, we can't force them to not send it our way. That's the way it's designed, and unfortunately going out into the bay it comes from the north and comes down and goes out that way. So that fix is going to take a lot of cooperation from a lot of different entities. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Well, you also have tidal surge factors, pushing back, all those things. You could go on and on.
Yeah, not making excuses, but all those things, it's hard to get.
Engineers will definitely be earning their pay.
Yes, sir.
The other component of that is the vulnerability study. which
That's happening too.
is also happening, which will make us eligible for a lot of state dollars
Yeah.
for assistance. What else you got?
That's it. It can't move quick enough for me,
No kidding.
right?
Let me go to Reed.
Oh boy, I could spend a lot of time here. Well, first off, I want to say that hindsight is always 2020. 3 weeks ago, I wasn't here physically present. I obviously was watching the entire meeting virtually. I had some residents emailing me throughout the meeting, was conversing with staff. But I do want to apologize. I wish I would have had the hindsight to have written something into the record explaining why I couldn't be here physically. And so I do apologize for that. That was something that bothered me. Like I said, hindsight's always 2020, but I'm definitely mature enough to admit when I could have done something better. And I wish I would have done that. With that being said, a lot of really good questions. Wayne, I actually wanted to echo some of these that were asked from residents tonight. First off, do we have a timeline on the levee wall, where we're at with that?
The Cambridge improvements.
Right, the
So-
Cambridge.
The Cambridge project is the temporary fix that's in there now went in after Nicole when the wall, it's basically a berm wall. So the Cambridge pond was built standard storm, 11-inch rainstorm with those 3 large pumps. And it worked as designed. It didn't work to stop 20 inches of rain from Ian, but it did what it was supposed to do. It just wasn't built for that. It was not sufficient for 20 inches of rain. So when Nicole overtopped it and the wall broke, the bags of super sacks were put in as a temporary measure till we could find a way to rebuild it to make it work for harder, stronger storms. So as we were working on that solution, obviously another storm came before we could get there. It is under design right now. It is about 50% designed. The solution brings the wall, so where the super sacks are now, that was the northern edge of the berm wall. The pumps pumped into the front side of the berm wall and then out into the marsh to the north. That's what failed when the wall went down. So the permanent solution is to build a wall on the north side that is the same height as the railroad tracks. And the railroad tracks have been there for a long time, and you know, I haven't lived here 40, 50 years like everybody, but what I understand is that those railroad tracks have never been overtopped by storm coming in off Rose Bay. And so the height of the northern wall and the height of the railroad tracks will form a wall that blocks both sides. And the pump, instead of pumping north into the marsh, which is where the entire Nova Canal empties out. So if you look at the maps, Nova comes under the road into the marsh and is coming south into the same area we were pumping north. And that water all has to turn east and go under the railroad tracks to get out. So what we're looking to do now is to pump that water directly east under the railroad tracks and out to the marsh on the other side, where it's not competing with the Nova water coming down, and it's not competing with trying to squeeze through the open areas under the railroad tracks. So that's what's under design. In order to get that done, it requires a Corps of Engineers permit. There's a federal permit, a St. John's permit, and the railroad has to authorize it. So we've had preliminary conversations with all agencies involved at the 50% level of the design. We don't have any indication we will have problems getting it permitted. So at 50% design, normal pace, it would be finished with design, permitted, and ready to be bid for construction in the fall of next year. Construction then taking about a year. And I don't want to overpromise anything because we can't make the Corps of Engineers give us that permit. We can't force that timeline. We will do everything we can to get those permits faster and have it done sooner and under construction. But it will not be finished by hurricane season next year. It will be the following year's hurricane season before it will be done. The engineers who have come up with the plans and have reviewed the plans believe that it will work and do what it's supposed to do for hurricane level strength storms. So I think the idea of pumping the water to the east and not competing with that north is going to be a big thing, and then building that wall higher on the north side, because what we kept running into is that the original design that was built off of the 2004 storm, so they're looking at 8, 9 inches of rain in 24 hours, build it to 11, the pump would just pump the water out into the rising tide. It was trying to push it right back into the lake. So it was just circling the water around. If the pump can't get it out, it really doesn't do you any good to keep circling it. And I think the volume of rain is critical here because the wall broke in Nicole, and we had water get into the streets, but we didn't have water flood people because it was a 6 inch or so worth of rain. We had no wall there at all, and it didn't flood the houses because it was less rain. If we'd had 20 inches of rain in Nicole, that would have been a big problem. So it's being built to avoid what appears to be a design challenge of the original model, which was that northern pump where you're just really limited by the rising tides. And so that should be bid, under construction this time next year, finished by the following hurricane season.
And what year was the first one built?
It started after the 04 storms. I think they completed it in 07.
Okay. And so I remember you and I've had a lot of conversations. Stormwater master plan, we're 2 years into building this, and we're going to have it complete soon. I know we're well over 75-80% done with that, if not more. So I like hearing these improvements. I appreciate the honesty too. So I don't know if you guys know this. I know that they know this. I flooded again. This is 2 consecutive times where I have had 8 inches of water in my house. So it's really hard for me, as I know it is for you guys, to sit here and hear things that we don't want to hear. That solutions take time, and that they take money, and they take permits, and I want a solution now. And I know that you guys do too. It's extremely frustrating, but I know you're telling me the truth, and I know you're being honest with me, and I'd rather you do that than sit here and say that it's going to be sooner and us not be able to do that, because the last thing I want to feel like is that the information is not reliable. So I appreciate that a great deal. To the Lift Station 19 conversation, I understand that there may be some complete misinformation as to what we're looking at, because the only thing I know about over there is a sewer lift station, not stormwater.
Sewage and not drainage.
Right. Could you speak to that a little bit?
There are, and you guys know that Robin, as assistant manager, runs the team of our field staff that goes out and talks to people. And several people have mentioned they've already talked to Juno. For those of you who had, he's a very thoughtful, he's very intelligent, knows what he's doing. He's also very thoughtful on the phone. He has empathy for the people he's talking to. So they're going to need to get out there and talk, because there are issues in that area that they want to talk to the people about. But when we started trying to determine what was being described as Lift Station 19, there is a sewer lift station in the area that is number 19. And so that works with the wastewater treatment process, where gravity puts it in there, it gets into that pump, and it gets pumped to the treatment plant. It is not part of the stormwater drainage system at all. But I don't want to, that just may be the wrong name. It doesn't mean that they don't have problems, they don't have issues that we can work on with drainage in the area. I don't know that the sewer lift station in the area is related to it, but there may be other issues. So when they get out there and they start talking about what causes the flooding, they're all in the same issue with the Nova Canal. When we analyze that, the 2 largest areas that flood are off the Nova Canal drainage basin and off the Cambridge basin. There's probably a little bit more than double, maybe 2/3 more homes that flood out of Nova than off of Cambridge. So Nova is if you look at the map of where all the damage is, both of them are bad. One of them is really bad. So the stormwater master plan, and you'd ask about the timing on that. So what we did is we had Kimley Horn, who is a major national engineering firm that does a lot of drainage work, come in and model the entire city. And then their focus and priority is finding areas where water gets into houses, into buildings, and to find solutions to keep the water from getting into buildings. Infrastructure is next. I think as long as we can keep it out of people's house, we'll work on keeping the road from having water in it after we worry about people's houses. So they went in and found the areas where we had the largest number of homes that had been impacted by storms. And then they ran tests. Like, okay, let's say we got 10 inches of rain. What happens if you take this pipe that's there that's 4 feet and make it 8 feet? Does it help? If that doesn't work, well, what happens if you make it 12 feet? Did that work? No. What if you put a pump on it? Does that work? So where we're at now is these areas where they're identifying, they're in the process of going through all these potential solutions in these key areas and determining which solution has the actual beneficial impact. Sometimes it's the cheaper one. It may be widen the ditch a little bit or put another pipe in. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's expensive and it's a giant pipe. But they're in the process now of analyzing all those potential solutions in those areas and coming back to say, okay, in this area, these are the things that are going to make the biggest difference, and then this is how many houses that could be positively impacted by it. And then you're going to be able to rank them, so you'll be able to prioritize. Like if you do this one, it'll help 500 houses. If you do this, it helps 100 houses. So you'll be able to see the level of them with a cost estimate, and it'll allow us to make decisions as we go forward with construction projects, saying some of them may be, it may be number 6 on the list of value overall, but it's something we can go do right away. And there may be another one that's going to take 10 years because we've got to get DOT to give us the right of way to build a giant pipe through their right of way. And that one may have the bigger impact. So we haven't reached that point, but they are, I would say they're at the 90% done on that master plan. That started immediately after Ian, when we put the team together that's here today to do that. And it will help tremendously be able to show people what we're trying to do to make a difference. And like you said, I'd like to be able to say we can get those things done instantly, but they're going to have to be designed and permitted and constructed.
Definitive list of projects and definitive list of actions is going to be a product of that stormwater management plan.
Correct.
All right.
And that will then open up the funding sources, because when you go to get grants, they always ask, do you have a plan and can you show us how it works in the plan? We want to make sure that if you're doing this, you've got a plan and you can show that it's actually going to have an impact. So the Resilient Florida dollars that you talked about and all the state funding and all the other dollars that are out there, we end up scoring way higher on the ability to get all this money by having a plan that shows how effective they are.
In conjunction with the vulnerability study.
Yes.
Keep going, Reed.
No, absolutely. I appreciate the information as well. I just want to get this stuff out where people can truly understand it, because I know I don't want to hear about how hard it rained, and I don't want to hear about this, all the different reasons at this point, but I know I have to. It's not what I want to hear, it's what I need to hear, so that as sitting in this seat with my counterparts here, that we can make good decisions, that we can go to Tallahassee and advocate for dollars. And you're right. I mean, if there's one thing I've learned since I've been on council since 21, is that when we go up there with shovel ready projects, it seems to work out a lot better for us. But I appreciate all the information. I just want to keep seeing more of it, and I think I'll let, for now I'm good. One more thing. I just want to make sure I do say thank you to staff, because I know ahead of, during, and after the hurricane that these guys have worked extremely hard. I know we had Public Works people out non-stop working 12-hour days and the days leading up clearing things, and I know that doesn't mean we got it all, but I know how hard they worked leading up to the storm. I know how hard they've worked during and after, and I want to make sure that that's not lost, because I know that we have an amazing group of people here with really good hearts and intentions and work ethics. So I know we have some really good people in the building, and I want to make sure that I acknowledge that, because I don't want them to get discouraged, because I know that they are doing their best. I really wholeheartedly believe that. I've had a lot of conversations with fellow neighbors of mine, and while we're obviously not happy that we're once again going through this, for a second time, we're still thankful for the people who are doing their best to work to improve the situation going forward. So I want to make sure that I get that out as well.
Scott?
Well, I think a lot of, what I was going to comment on is kind of got covered. I just want to touch real quick on a couple of things, and I apologize for kind of jumping around on this. The Cambridge Basin that the city manager is talking about, the one resident, I think, who was talking, and I may get this wrong, so I apologize if I do, was referring to the Woods subdivision and indicating that the Woods subdivision had never flooded. That's not accurate. The Woods subdivision absolutely flooded significantly in 2004, which wasn't the first time it had flooded, and it led to...
That was the reason why the station was built.
Right. It led to FEMA dollars, which purchased a lot of those homes in those areas, because they had looked at this and said, this is an area that we don't think can ever be completely prevented from flooding. So that information that's out there is just not accurate. That did lead to the project itself that didn't used to be there, which we refer to as the Cambridge Basin Project. And that project, the scope of that project as it was being designed, looked at the historical perspective, which is kind of like what the city manager was was talking about earlier, because I think at some point when you're looking at projects, you have to look at a project and go, okay, what are we trying to defend against? Are we defending against 5 inches of rain, 10, 15, 20, 30, what is it? And of course, the more you're trying to do, the more cost, and you got to have projects that are realistic and feasible. So they looked at, this was before my time, by the way, but they looked at those historical numbers and those perspectives, and they looked at a period of time. And I even have gone back and done a lot of research myself in the last few weeks, because I really want to see that as well. And so you look, when people say, because I was born and raised here, so I've been here 55 years, but when people say I've lived here for 30 years, we've had a lot of storms and my house never flooded. True, that's true. A lot of those storms bring a lot of wind problems and a little bit of rain. Most on average, from what I saw, conservatively, somewhere between about 3 to 6 inches of rain is what most hurricanes bring. Some bring even less than that. They just bring a lot of wind. This pattern of storms that we have seen in the last few years, not only in Port Orange, but just across the state of Florida, that are coming across and out of the Gulf, hit the Gulf side hard with storm surges and wind, but then they get to the east side of the state, and it's major rain impacts that historically have not been something that communities along the east coast of the entire state have had to engineer and try to defend against. So that's what we're trying to catch up to. And when I've had some conversations with engineers, the city manager, and how the state and all the government entities are involved look at projects and come up with a number, whether that number was, 4 inches of rainfall in 24 hours or 8. It's gone up over the years. I think if we look at the pattern of storms that have impacted our state collectively over that last 10 years, those numbers have got to go up. That perspective has got to go up. That mindset's got to go up. That's not a number we set, but it is something we're trying to fight against. So the Cambridge Basin project, after the storms of 2004, was constructed and built in 2007. It was not designed to handle the rainfall amounts that we have seen in the last 3 years, because nobody had ever seen those rainfall amounts in here. So right, wrong, or indifferent, that's just how we got to that. So that project has been under design. I had several residents say, well, you haven't done anything since then. That's not true. That's wrong. We have looked at that project and said, okay, let's just don't patch it back up, because putting it back the way it was isn't going to help when we get another massive rainfall. Nobody thought we would get it in 2 years because we hadn't seen it in 50. Well, we did. But the idea on that now is to improve that significantly so that it will be able to perform significantly better than its original design. That process, which the city manager was just speaking about, and the engineering process, it is not something that can move extremely fast, because there's a lot of governmental agencies involved in that. If it were just up to us and we just had money, we would already be out there doing it, right? But when you're dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers, Department of Environmental Protection, St. John's Water Management District, it's all going to take time. And then the funding aspect of it is incredibly important. As a side note to that, I just want to say, I feel that last night, the elections across our state particularly can work in our favor. I hope that we can continue to be successful, and maybe more successful as a region, going to Tallahassee and fighting for state dollars to bring back for some of these really large scale projects. It's gonna take that. That has to happen. You cannot do projects without money. So we gotta go up there and continue to do that. I'll get off that part. Somebody also touched on the base, again, I apologize that I'm kind of jumping around here. Oh, and I do want to compliment Junos, and I'm glad you brought that up. And I do want to, the city manager offered folks that want to really kind of get more into the details and the technical aspects of some of the stuff and how our systems work and what we can and can't do. I highly encourage you to still, Robin can stick her hand in the air, reach out to them. They will set that up. They will get out. They will have those conversations with you. Those have gone extremely well. So I encourage that.
We also learn things ourselves from those conversations.
Oh, very much so. No doubt. Absolutely. Somebody had talked about the Beacon Woods area. Extremely familiar with the Beacon Woods area. It is an example, and as I say this, I'm not making an excuse, but I'm just pointing it out as something that creates a significant challenge. The Beacon Woods subdivision was built back in the 70s. The standards, the flood mitigation, stormwater standards didn't exist It didn't exist. That subdivision today, if you Google Earth it and you look at it, you're gonna notice there are no retention ponds. There's not one in the whole subdivision because they weren't required. That Memorial Park retention thing was added later, didn't have anything to do with the Beacon Woods development. So if you look at that subdivision, you could not build that subdivision today. You couldn't build it. It would look a lot more like what you see in the subdivisions that have been built since the 2000s, where there's retention ponds everywhere. The neighborhood that I live in, there's 21 retention ponds in the neighborhood because that's what was required in order for them to retain that much water. So these older areas are these are big challenges, and we're not going to shy away from the challenges. We got to figure them out, and you know, there's not a space there for us to go in and go, well, let's put a 4-acre retention pond in Beacon Woods. So we got to figure out other kinds of designs because that space doesn't exist. It's all homes. The majority is what I'm talking about, but the majority of that particular area up and down that Nova corridor, in my opinion, based on a lot of what I'm seeing, is largely impacted by the Nova Canal system. Totally different system. I think that's going to take a really big regional collaboration.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that is going to occur. A lot of communities to the north of us, I think that they have had discussions and ideas to resolve some of their flooding issues, just to put more pump water more into the Nova Canal system. The problem with that is it's all coming south, right? So we talked about that a little bit last time.
Even faster.
And it comes fast because they use pumps. And so everything's got to go out of Ponce Inlet, which means Daytona's got to send it south, South Daytona's got to send it south, it comes into Port Orange, and therein lies, because we're at the bottom of the funnel. So we really need to work hard with our regional partners at lots and lots of levels of government. The ideas are there, the concepts are there. We just need to work towards getting the engineering and the design, better outfalls to move those water, to keep those canal systems from overflowing, because that's essentially what's happening. I've worked in my previous career, and I've been in that area, and I've watched water that will come out of the canal, and when it does, it is wide open, like Lori Becker talked about. It is wide open to the topography of the land. And when it comes out of that canal system, it flows at a southeasterly direction through neighborhoods, through streets, through retention ponds, things like that. That's a big fix that's got to be undertaken there, and that is going to take time. And just cleaning the Nova Canal system is not going to get it done. That's going to take a lot of work there. But that's what we got to do, and we will work on that. And then someone had mentioned in the Portona area, which is another big challenge, but I appreciate the comments. I quite honestly do. And there's a resident down there that I communicate with quite a bit, and she's got a ditch right by her house. Yeah. And we've been talking, and she's like, the water's still in the ditch. It's not going anywhere. And I said, that's right, because the groundwater is still so high. You can't dig a ditch deeper to make it hold more water. It doesn't work that way. Once you're into the groundwater, which might in some cases only be 1.5 feet under the surface of the dirt, that's it. You can't dig it any deeper than that. It's one of the challenges we have with our retention ponds when people say, well, pump the pond out weeks before or days before the storm gets here. Well, you can't, because the groundwater fills it back up. And so if you've ever been to the beach and you dig a hole and you're digging and then all of a sudden water's coming up through the hole, that's kind of what's happening farther inland, and maybe not quite as shallow, but that's a big challenge. And so cleaning ditches is a big thing. We need to stay on top of that. We can get better on that. Retention pond maintenance, all that good kind of stuff is all good, but there's a lot of limits to that because of we are a coastal community. There is a lot of low-lying areas. Some of the neighborhoods that I've been out into recently, their driveways sit at no more than maybe 2 feet above sea level. These are low level areas, and so they do present challenges. We got it. We're on board. I mean, these projects, this stormwater management projects, these have been in the works. They've been going through the engineering process, not because of this storm, but way before. And they were going to continue to take those, and hopefully we can get up to Tallahassee in just a few short months and advocate our butts off to try to get some dollars to move these project timelines. Because I don't know if anybody that's here tonight has come to some of the workshops that we've already had prior to these storms and looked at these timelines and looked at the projections and the plans and the details and the technical aspects. We've got some great projects ready to go. we got to generate the funding. We got to get the funding from somewhere. It's got to, and a lot of it's got to come from the state, just to be honest. So.
Mhm. And they have programs, they have plans, and we've already had this conversation.
And just one, so on another note, I just want to mention, I appreciate what the Cops for Christmas program is all about. I also want to just touch, for those that are watching and listening, there's another organization, we mentioned it the other day, I'm trying to pull it up here real quick, I apologize. The Volusia Basket Brigade, they are now, they're looking to do 4,500 baskets for Thanksgiving. So that one's closer and right around the corner. If anybody knows families or wants to nominate families, this is an incredible organization. Year after year after year, it gets bigger, bigger, and bigger. It is VolusiaBasketBrigade.com is their website. They've also got a social media page, Volusia Basket Brigade. If you want to donate food items, baskets, help with delivery, they need drivers, they need people to show up on the day that they do the delivery and put stuff in cars. It is a phenomenal organization. I know a lot of people are familiar with it. They've built an incredible brand themselves, but just know that that is in full swing. So if you want to help out, or if you know somebody in need, that's a great opportunity.
Good stuff.
Go ahead.
Thank you. All right, Tracy, your turn.
Well, got 4 key things that I need to go over. First is, sorry I was not here on the last meeting. Wasn't my intent to have an oak tree decide to destroy my knee. During that meeting,
Don't do that again, please.
I was laid up in the hospital for about 12 days. I laid there. So I do apologize. You having me here that night would have been bad, being drugged up. You would have not wanted to see that. My wife didn't want to see that. But saying that, when you're laying there in the hospital for 2 weeks, that allows you to get a full circle of watching what happened on that commission meeting, taking notes, sitting down, figuring things out very clearly on a couple of items. The first one was, right off the bat, was me and Wayne have talked about this, and deals with a possibility of a standard operating procedure change dealing with sidewalks. When we have an emergency situation and we have road debris that needs to be cleared to allow our emergency vehicles through, they go and chop that at the road base and push it into the easement. Now, it doesn't seem like a big deal. But I just want you to think 7 more feet just for a second. 7 more feet is cutting the sidewalk back and pushing that debris, the same amount of debris other than 7 feet of it, and pushing it into the easement. What that does is it does 2 things. It allows the city to still be functional and have an emergency response, but it also allows the community to move about on sidewalks. Because, you know, we had Milton come through and it just wrecked everything. And in that process, we were trying to get the city up and running. And one of the major to-dos that I looked at, because I had 2 citizens reach out to me and ask me, when are the sidewalks going to get cleared? And I went, what are you talking about? He says, school starts back in a couple days. What are you going to do for the kids? Okay. So here we are, clearing sidewalks with a team of citizen volunteers from Port Orange to make sure kids have safe passageway going back to school. That's what the injury was caused from. Had nothing to do with the city. It was just a group of citizens doing good deeds to make sure that we were taking care of the kids. So my question is to Wayne, as city manager, what is the SOP, and can it be modified enough to make sure that schools' sidewalks aren't impacted? Plus the savings of the money, we're not having to go back a second time to recut.
So in the heat of the storm, the key is to get the street cleared so fire trucks, ambulances, police cars can get down there. So that's generally what they do, is cut at the edge of the street and push. We started doing some look after the questions to be sure. There are 3 or 4 of our schools that are actually on streets that are owned by Port Orange, so we have control. So some of them we don't own the road, so we can't go on Dunlawton and push off Dunlawton. Right. But on the streets that we have, we will preset those areas to the drivers so that they know, can they do it? One of the other challenges we have is we can't shove our stuff into private property. I mean, in an emergency, there's a little more flexibility, but it's not a good practice to say, shove it outside the right of way. You're trying to keep it on your own property, but I think that we can modify it so that we can do stuff in those areas, because I certainly understand when I was talking to you, particularly Spruce Creek Road and Taylor, which is county, but those roads were, there's two schools on there, the high school and the elementary school, so that affects a lot of people, and there's a lot of Taylor Road or Spruce Creek Road right away on the outside. So we're going to work on something, if that's what council wants us to do, we're going to work on something to have that be part of the initial push in those areas, that where we can do it and where we have right away to get it there.
That, along with keeping trees from falling on Tracy's leg, I think would be some big benefits. to that.
They did a tremendous amount. I mean, if you saw the amount they got to ahead of time, I mean, they almost single-handedly covered that whole area.
I was just glad you were highly productive before the tree landed on your head.
Yeah, and because school started back, I mean, we were still in heavy recovery mode, and we had kids going back to school on Tuesday, and they had cleared that whole area.
What else?
So being out there on the roads and seeing it firsthand, we were out literally after Milton passed. We had teams volunteering, helping out. So we saw the flooding firsthand. I don't know what people think sometimes, but when people's homes and roads are flooded, driving down those streets, there's just not clean words for me to say. People just need to have an ideal of what the hell. You're waking water in people's homes. And I don't know how many times I saw it. I may not have been the best citizen at that point because I was parking my truck in the middle of the road to make sure they slowed down and stopped to have conversations with the individuals. Not saying for y'all to do that. That's just my personality. But it's one of those things that you have to take the proactive approach to understand what you're doing with your vehicle. Roads are flooded, stay off of them. People are trying to get around and save what they have for their homes. Quit making it worse. And while I was out there doing this, seeing firsthand fire department, police department, public works, everybody that was prepping for the storm, now the storm has passed and they are out there working. Thank you. I mean, I can't stretch that enough. Thank you. We had one truck roll up on us when we were chainsawing and wanted to know what we were doing, and I smiled and waved and says, move on. Because we had already had the conversation earlier with the city. But that brings up some of the concerns that I have. And when you get there to sit and you have times on your hand, and it's being able to write this out, make sure it's said right. We're supposed to learn from life events. Not talking about my leg. It's if not, history tends to repeat itself. And I think all of us would agree upon that. Dealing with recent events, we need to analyze what has happened and what we can learn from it, which is what you've been hearing from, not council, but from all the staff from the city, analyzing and trying to figure out how to mitigate and fix what is going on. 3 parts to this. Part 1 is the history of water. Now, the history of water, Robin, you have that slide? Just want to touch on one slide here. They gave this to me in the hospital, and I was looking at it. And it's a major thing. I mean, history of water that they put together is over 104 years of history. We had 15 inches of rain. The last time we had 15 inches of rain was literally 1924. And I know, I'm going to walk through. But as we go through that and we look at that history of rain and being 100 years since we had that event, that means Ian 2 years ago was 20 inches of rain. And everybody's had all this talk about rain and water and what's happening. We've had 2 major events in the last 2 years, and the last time we had something like this was over 100 years. That's downright scary. 100-year events, and 2 years back to back. What's scary about that event, when you look at it up there, is that 15 inches that we had for Milton, and the peak of the storm. And I was that guy too. I was sitting there in my house, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, shining a flashlight out and going, oh, look, the street's still dry. That's awesome. And then 3 o'clock hit. And for 2 hours was the bulk of the storm. The bulk of the storm was registered at 8 inches. We took half of the water in a 2-hour period. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not a betting man, but if you have that much water and you're trying to pour it in a bucket, it's going to spill out. But we took 8 inches of water in a 2-hour period. What did our surrounding areas take? And then the surrounding area water flows to us. So we not only got 8 inches of water, we got the surrounding areas of water flowing to us with our 8 inches in a 2-hour period. That's a polite way of saying that we had a small dam let loose flooding across Port Orange. 24-hour period, 15 inches. Going along with what Scott said earlier is understanding the land development code. This is a 100-year period, so I'm going to shorten it up to a 50-year period. 1970, let's start with that date and go, okay, what was the land development code? Nothing. Zero code for building. It was up to the general contractor or the residential contractor to deem what was worthy for the subdivision to need to handle its water. Nothing by the city, nothing by the state, nothing by the county. That's downright scary. We didn't get a code until 1990. And in 1990, when the code was put in place to handle rainwater in a 24-hour period, the city of Port Orange was 54% built out. Now think about that. We're dealing with rainwater, stormwater, and flooding on at least 54% of our community that had no code to begin with. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not saying should they have done something as the city was evolving and things of that nature. It just flat didn't happen. City kept building. None of these individuals up here and none of the individuals that are sitting in the directors and managers positions of anybody for the city was here at that time when this was going through. We are living with other people's problems, and we are trying to deal with those problems as we go forward. All I can say as a councilman is we have 50 years of problem and greater, and we have a time period of, believe it or not, 3 years on our management. Our management team and directors of the city of Port Orange is no greater than 3 years. They have been undigging and digging out problems of the city that was previous predecessors to them. Council is in that same position. All I can ask is that you give the engineers time to get things approved. So when we build it right. We're asking for Tallahassee for money that we're not having to charge back exorbitant millage rates. We don't need to raise taxes if we can get the money from the state and the feds. That's another big concern. Some of these projects are $50 and $60 million. That's 1/3 of the budget for the city of Port Orange in 1 year. I wouldn't even want to think about what a tax levy would be. And I'm not even proposing that by any stretch of the imagination. It's just understanding what we have gotten ourselves involved in. We have a staff that will go out and do more than I have ever seen before. I have been here in Port Orange as a resident for 30 years. I've never seen a staff, and that's not me just sitting up here, I've never seen a staff more proactive than what we have right now. So we're going to work through this as a community. How do we get there? Well, it's understanding some of the little terms that I hear and spatted out on the internet that plows us all the time, that we're overbuilding. So I go back to the drawing board. I know this is a big one. And I go to the overbuilding concept of Port Orange. Now remember, we were 54% built out in 1990. We're, Wayne, what is it, 80?
Close to 90 now.
Close to 90% now in 2024. It's understanding that there's not a lot of building left. But knowing what we've done in the last 5 years, I thought was very, very relevant to this. The building code today is 8.5 inches of rainwater and 1.2 factor for holding its own water on property. I know one of the things was asked dealing with Aldi's property, and that was a big concern of mine. I am literally in the Westport Shopping Center where my business is. It's literally in my backyard. I can spit and hit it. It's there. It was a concern, big concern. Big enough that one of the first things when I could finally get off of my property and drive, I had to go check my business. The property at that section held its own water. Now granted, the building's not there, but the pad is paved. So that pad is paved and the water is saturated into that area. The lake and pond behind it, was it full? Yes. But it was not spilling. And that's a big deal. They were holding their own water and it wasn't spilling. The front of Westport Shopping Center went through a major renovation 14 years ago. And in that renovation, they had to expand the parking lot. And they expanded the ponds per code in that parking lot. They got elongated. The water was even with the tops of the weirs, but not spilling. Today's codes do work as long as the engineering is done right when it's built. I'm not going to say that building is wrong. Sometimes engineers can make mistakes too. But the building codes of today do work. In the last 5 years, we have taken a 1,365 units of apartments. And everybody goes, apartments are popping up all over the place. We've had 5 major apartment complexes in 5 years. That's approximately, by code, 900 people for the apartment complex per year. Port Orange population by housing is 118 houses per year being built. 100 homes. Round it off to 120. That's where we're at. It's 120 homes. When people say there's a boom, and I take those numbers and you go together with apartments, condos, and homes, that is a 1.4% increase per year for residents moving into Port Orange. 1.4%. I just want to make sure everybody's clear of that. This is the actual numbers. It's not hidden material. It's for anybody. This is the residential boom that we're having, 1% and 1/4 as we go forward. So please understand that the flooding and things of that nature, I'm not saying it isn't building, but it's a minuscule piece with what we have going on. There's other factors that we need to find out to figure out how to stop the flooding. That's where the master plan for stormwater has been being worked on for the last several years. And I think there needs to be another piece to it. We have professionals from our staff doing the management plan. What I'm proposing to council tonight, and we passed this out earlier, is a proposal for a stormwater advisory board The Stormwater Advisory Board is pretty simplistic. The mission of it is to enhance the city's stormwater management by making recommendations on possible improvements that will increase drainage and capabilities for intense stormwater events. It's working to try to help the city and find problems that they may have overlooked. I'm human. I get told all the time when I make a mistake. What I
But
do
you're
with
also
it,
married, too.
I'm married too, that's true. But at that same time, I have to analyze what can be done. The scope of that board is the Stormwater Advisory Board will review the volume of stormwater within the city's boundaries and the influx of water from neighboring areas flowing into Port Orange. I think that's a major concern that we're missing. Who do they report to? The board is expected to present quarterly reports on potential stormwater issues and propose solutions for city council and city managers' considerations to help staff. We're not saying staff is having issues. We're trying to assist and aid where they may have not looked. It's nice to have a second pair of eyes. We want to make the board where it is functional. Functional boards are small boards, not a major conglomerate of 20 people. Functional boards need to be small. 5-person board. Right off the bat, when I was talking to a few citizens about this process, I told them that the 5-person board, 2 would be citizens of Port Orange. We need insight. We need to be hearing from you. But it's not just sitting there and griping. We're going to work. 3rd person is a Florida licensed civil engineer. We need somebody that knows how to make this work. 4th person is a Florida licensed Division I contractor. Now, a lot of y'all may go, who's that? I had to go and dig up some codes, had some friends help me with this one. A Division I contractor is defined as a residential contractor, a building contractor, or a general contractor. If we just said a general contractor, we may lose a vital person that has skills that might be a residential contractor or a building contractor. So a Division I encompasses all 3 contractor types. And lastly, but to me the most important piece, is a dewatering specialist or an underground utility contractor. The reason that's vital is they know how to move water. They may not be able to design it, but they know how to move the water, and that's where the civil engineers and Division I contractors come in. 5-person board. The board chair will be one of the contractors. We have to have somebody in charge that understands building codes, not just shooting from the hip. Shooting from the hip gets us in trouble. It allows us to fix one problem and maybe flood somebody else's home. That's the last thing I ever want to happen. Me and Juno's talked about this greatly, is what's the fix? There's a lot of studies. Cambridge, tons of studies before they got the engineering going through. Because the last thing we wanted to do is have a knee-jerk reaction, throw another weir, throw another dam, throw another sandbag, throw whatever it needs to be, and we flood another community on the backside of it. That doesn't help the community. Somebody said it earlier, and I'm going to echo what they sounded, is we have to lead with compassion. The scope of this board is to help the community get things moving and to help the city to help us help you. And hopefully my fellow councilmen agree upon that, and I'd like your input.
Well, Because you've got a very detailed proposal, and we'll have time to think about it, but we need to put it on an agenda so people will be noticed that we'll have that discussion. That will also give us time for, to consider an input. I mean, I certainly have concerns because we're trying to invent a wheel with the stormwater management plan. I want that wheel to go faster, not slower, and I also concerned, are we creating a second wheel or not? But we need to have, that's going to involve an advanced council discussion on policy. So I would ask you to prepare with staff that council discussion, and then we can move forward. That way it's noticed on an agenda in the future.
Yep, and this is, and understand, this is a secondary aid.
But I can also tell
not
you've already
the
had
ones on
that,
I
that
have.
conversation with staff extensively, so preparing that as an agenda item, I guess you'd be the presenter. And then we, seeing as you basically already have, but we need to make sure we do that in an advertised public fashion, and that'll give us the rest of us time to prepare and have adequate discussion, and the public can as well. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's one issue. What else you got tonight? Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
Mayor, I'm sorry, if I could jump in real quick. I have
Absolutely.
one last thing.
Yep.
I had made a notation. I don't know if the gentleman from Sugar Forest is still here or not. But
Oh,
there you are.
Oh,
Good
no,
to see
he's
you.
there.
All right. I'm just making a plea to you. I know that type of activity that you're talking about is super frustrating. I came out of the world of law enforcement. I get it. My plea to you is, and your neighbors, is please continue to call in violations. I know it seems redundant, and I get it, but we have to operate within the confines of the law, and code enforcement confines are not favorable as I would like to see them, as you would like to see them. But the persistency is huge. So I know it wears on you. I could tell why you were talking, the frustration. I'm with you. I sympathize. I'm just asking, please don't give up on the process. I'm happy to meet with you and tell you a story of my own neighborhood that drove me nuts for a really long time and is still in there. But that's all. I'm not looking for a back and forth here with you. I'm just asking you, please, and the neighbors, call in the violations. Call them in real time. When stuff's happening in real time, that's critically important. A lot of times people will say, well, it was last Tuesday, this was happening. Call it in real time. But I appreciate your comments. I've
seen him for 10 years.
Yep.
And
We know. We know.
The house
Yeah.
burns down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank you. But he still didn't go away.
Yeah.
He still lived there for five months.
Stay at it with
And
us.
then he went somewhere. But
Oh, we know
We
the
got
story.
you.
We know.
Yeah.
how does he keep the property?
Wayne, in that regard also, I did have a question myself. We have a number of people living in temporary campers and things like that outside of their homes because of the hurricane. In certain situations where they flooded, and we've allowed that to be acceptable, and in the past we've used emergency orders to cover those for a certain period of time. What I want to make sure is that as we draw any emergency orders along those lines, that they're drawn tightly enough so this guy, and I've seen the property, I saw it this morning, I drove the neighborhood, isn't able to take advantage of that temporary measure where we're trying to help other people, where he takes advantage of that.
There's a state statute now that covers that, but it addresses criteria, and you have to actually have a house you're working on that was damaged by the storm. So if you have an empty lot, that's not a house that was damaged by the storm.
Okay, good, because that was my question.
There may
about
be
that.
other loopholes in that rule for him to camp on his site.
Oh, he's camping. I've seen it.
But
He's there.
the actual recovery from the hurricane doesn't apply.
Okay. With that, I think it'd be appropriate we take a 8-minute facility break before we reconvene with the public hearing. So with that, we are in recess for 8 minutes. And we are back. Public hearing portion of the meeting is now open. Ordinance, item 14, ordinance number 2024-18. First Amendment to Anglers Cove PUD Master Development Agreement. Mr. Attorney, if you'd read the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approving the First Amendment to the Anglers Cove PUD Master Development Agreement to establish modified definition of a screen enclosure for Lot 4 of the Anglers Cove subdivision, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-18.
Second.
We have a motion and proper second. Items open on the floor for discussion. Second reading, council comments, questions.
No, we discussed.
There being none, would anyone here care to speak to the item? I looked at Robert, he's still stationary. Okay. Back to council, final comments. Call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Grubbs?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Item 15, second reading of ordinance number 2024-20, the Land Development Code Amendment Chapter 20 relating to the eligibility for economic development incentives. Mr. Attorney, if you'd read that for me, please.
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 20, relating to eligibility for economic development incentives and updating language related to impact fees, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-20.
Second.
Got it.
Do we have a proper second?
Second, Foley.
Yep.
I'll give it to Foley.
Foley got it.
There you go. Sit still, Drew. That's good. We have a motion, proper second. The item's open on the floor for discussion. Council, comments or questions? Second reading. There being none, would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Final comments. Call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Grubbs?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Public hearing portion of the meeting is closed. Regular agenda, item 16, second reading of ordinance number 2024-21, the amendment to Chapter 54, Article 5 of the Police Pension Fund of the Code of Ordinances. Mr. Attorney?
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 54, Article 5, Police Pension Fund, amending Section 54-130, benefit level, amending supplemental benefit eligibility for certain members, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-21.
Second. Go ahead, Jared. Drew got it.
Second.
We're giving that one to Drew.
That's
The
my
item is
board.
open and on the floor for discussion, as we've had a motion and a proper second from Mr. Bastian. Council, questions, comments?
No, this one, second reading, and it's,
We've hashed this one out over time.
Yes, we have. Anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to council. No comments? Call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Grubbs?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Item 17, second reading of ordinance number 2024-22, which is an amendment to Chapter 54, Article 4, Fire and Rescue Pension Fund of the Code of Ordinances.
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-22.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. Thank you, Mr. Foley. The item is open on the floor for discussion. Council, comments?
Would you like me to read that one?
I jumped, my bad, City Attorney.
No worries.
Mr. Attorney.
I got ahead of you.
I'm all over it. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 54, Article 4, Fire and Rescue Pension Fund, amending Section 5477, definitions, amending the definition of salary, amending Section 5482, retirement benefits, amounts, and eligibility, amending the normal retirement date for certain members, providing for codification, conflicting ordinances, severability, and providing an effective date.
And that was your motion.
That was my motion.
That was
And
my
your second. Council, comments or questions? Okay. Anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Final comments or questions? Call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Grubbs?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. We just took care of public service. Good job, guys. Item 18 is first reading of ordinance number 2024-24, amending the information technology policies for city boards and commissions. Mr. Attorney?
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances, Article 3, Boards and Commissions, Division 1, Electronic Information Systems, amending terminology to be consistent with recently adopted information technology and cybersecurity policies, expanding applicability adding additional prohibited uses, addressing security and licensing issues, amending the public records requirements, establishing a new section 2-58, adding use requirements, providing for conflicting ordinances, severability, codification, scrivener's errors, and effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-24.
I'll second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item is open on the floor for discussion. I don't miss having to read those. Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Wayne, who do we have speaking to this one?
I'll do a brief overview. If you need more depth, I have IT staff as well as the attorney who helped us put this together. Basically, a couple months back, council authorized a cybersecurity framework to be adopted. We put in place for the city as a whole. It included a requirement that we adopt a whole series of policies related to staff. So we have all those in place, and staff is following the policies, part of the federal government's effort to reduce cyber fraud and cyber attacks on governments. As we were putting it together, though, we realized that there's an ordinance that relates to the council itself and your boards and commissions, that I can't put those policies. It requires an ordinance for you to do yourself. So this is council's version of the exact same policies. Similar stuff using the current modern terms, talks about the software you can put on your computers, websites you can go to, various things related to how do you limit the ability for anybody to hack or attack our system. So that's essentially what this is your ordinance would match, you yourselves and your boards would match the same policies we have as staff.
Council, questions, comments?
Nope, good cleanup work.
Yeah, this is
what we need to do. Be
Good
more
catch.
efficient, not less. Anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Final comments or questions? Call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Grubbs?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Additional items, Mr. City Attorney.
No, thanks.
Nothing at all. Okay, I did have something for you, but I'll ask you about it another time. City Manager.
Nothing further.
City Council Committee reports. River to CTPO. Councilman Foley.
Not much to report here, but a couple quick things. First off, we're going to need to change the name of the River to Sea TPO because it's going to be the Volusia Flagler TPO. They officially have it's kind of a government DBA, if you will, and they are working on actually moving over everything little by little. So you'll see that change on Facebook, on marketing materials, on agenda packets, all of those things. Also, this morning I attended the executive committee meeting, which I've been on now for a year. I've been on the executive committee, and due to some shifts at the top, I am now the first vice chairperson of the River to Sea TPO.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, you should see the pay and benefits, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But no, really honored to serve there. Feel like, especially to be trusted by my peers so much, it means a great deal to me, and I thank them for that opportunity. Also, we had a preliminary audit report with James Moore. Zach came in from James Moore, and that has just improved so much from the first year I was there to now the third. Really, really impressed with everything, the work the executive director has done. It's really remarkable the changes that have gone there in the last 3 years. So kudos to them. But it's all good things over there.
All right. With that, any other business come before us this evening? If not, we will do this again in 13 days on November 19th, which will be my last. Have a good night, everybody.